Awesome. And we're going to welcome Susan Johnston. Susan, I have to tell you, we don't have any duplicate first names of speakers at this conference, but we have Johnsons and Johnstons, and that T, has that been the bane of your existence your entire career?
As long as I've been married to my husband, Mr. Johnston, we always talk about it's Johnston with a T.
Yeah.
And then they go, oh, but I still get the Johnson.
Yeah, I found going through like our workbook and our app and all the places, I spelled your name different every time. And sometimes I wonder, because I know it's Johnston, so I'm like, did autocorrect get me? Or I don't know, but I'll blame it on autocorrect. It sounds way better than me just spelling your name wrong.
That's okay. That's okay. You miss it when you read it anyway. Johnson, Johnston. I believe they're all from Ireland.
Is that right? So I am introducing Susan Johnston. We kind of have a lot to unpack about what you do. So what you own I don't know, do you own a nonprofit? How does nonprofit ownership work?
Well, there is no owners of a nonprofit. There are founders, which I am. I'm founder of Central Furniture Rescue. I'm also president and executive director.
Oh.
Yes.
Yeah, all the hats.
All the hats. But we started in 2019. So we are into year 3. Amazing. And what we do is we collect furniture, basic furniture, household items from the community, and in turn provide them to individuals and families transitioning out of homelessness into a new place to live. We've also helped with Daricia victims. And we receive referrals from over 30 human service agencies here in Cedar Rapids metro area.
So you partner with a lot of other nonprofits. You're kind of like a piece of the puzzle in helping people transition from wherever they've been to being on their own or to having a home of their own. Is everyone like, it's funny when we think of homelessness, and I know I learned this during the Daricia, so I'd love for you to speak on it. We think of homelessness, we think of someone that is living out of their bag on the street. That's what a homeless person is. But that definition is really not it, is it?
No, there's a perception. And that perception is caused by what you see outside of Walmart. It's caused by what you see in the media. But the reality is that homelessness looks just like you and I. Mm-hmm. Homelessness is an individual recently released from prison. Homelessness is a foster child outgrowing foster care and is now on their own.
Oh, wow.
Homelessness is a family who was affected by a fire. Homelessness is a family that was affected by the Daricia. Homelessness is domestic violence, fleeing from domestic violence, and you just run. Homelessness is, we had a family, a mom and a dad, and they had a 9-year-old autistic nonverbal little boy. They were living the dream. They had a 4-bedroom house, car, camper, all of that. And dad got sick. Dad got really sick. It was a brain sickness. He lost his job. They went through all of their insurance. She lost her job. They lost their house. They lost their car. They lost everything, and they didn't know what to do. But they were campers. So they spent a summer camping and realized they can't do that forever. Right. And they got in touch with Willis Dady. And they found a very small apartment. And we were able to furnish it, to provide them with everything they needed because they had nothing.
You talk about that. What a humbling experience. That could literally be any of us. And I'm sure many people listening, watching have been through something like that. I know, even going through the Daricia, when I worked on the trailer home that I worked on, I would, say I'm helping a homeless woman. And I don't know, I mean, she never said, but it always felt very strange to say that about her because she just had a home. It's like, well, I'm not homeless, so it wasn't my fault. It's kind of how I felt for her anyway. It was hard to say those words, but that was it. So there wasn't another, she, yeah. And here in Iowa, you can't, you could have the best camper there is, but it doesn't work when it's 30 below.
Exactly.
Um,
Exactly.
It's not good. How did you get into this? What spurred you wanting to do something like this to help people in this way?
Well, it all stems from, I worship at Central Church of Christ on First Avenue. Been worshiping there for 35 years. For about 25 of those years, our church had a ministry called the Clothing Giveaway. So twice a year, the members and the community would get together and bring everything that they would usually take to Goodwill. And we would spend a week setting up the auditorium, the fellowship hall, and we would open it up to the community on Saturday morning from 8 until noon. In August of 2018, the woman who had been doing that for 25 years comes to me and says, I can't do this anymore. This is yours. And I went, oh, okay. And I said, can I think about it? And she said, Susan, it's not rocket science. It kind of does itself every year. And I was like, okay, well, let me think about it. And then her husband comes over and hugs me and whispers in my ear saying, Susan, she has the beginning stages of dementia. You're the only one she trusts. So what do you say? You say, yes, I'll do it.
Oh yeah, you had no choice there.
I had no choice. And so we did the transition at church. And anytime you take on a new project, new job, everyone needs to tell you what's wrong with it and how it needs to change. And they don't want to help.
No, everybody's got opinions though, don't they?
Exactly. And and I appreciate that, but I had to filter it all out, right? So it came down to 3 things. It's a lot of work. It's not conducive to shopping, and it's not relational. And so I thought, okay. So my first clothing giveaway was the last week of October of 2018. So the week before, I called Phoebe Trapp, who was director at Willis Davey, and I said, hey, this is what my church usually does, but what I'd like to do is open this up to your clients during the week while we're setting up for private shopping experiences. So I took care of shopping and I took care of relational. Still a lot of work.
Right, but that must have given them, taking some of that, the ego, humble, making it private. Wow, that's
yeah. So we had 30 shopping experiences scheduled. Most of them didn't have transportation, so their caseworkers brought them or I went and picked them up. We even opened it up to Waypoint domestic violence survivors. But on Thursday of that last week of October of 2018, I met a woman named Daricia. She has no idea this is all her fault.
Oh.
So I meet Daricia, we're being relational, we're walking around, we're shopping. And I said, Daricia, is there something we can be praying about? We're in a church, it's kind of what we do. And she said, Susan, I start my new job on Monday at Walmart. I'm so excited. Well, I knew that she had escaped domestic violence. So this was huge for her. I was like, oh, Daricia, I'm so excited for you. I'm so proud of you. She said, however, I move into my new apartment with my 2 little girls on Saturday, and I don't have any furniture. Susan, do you have furniture?
Oh, wow.
My heart sunk. I had everything but what she needed. Everything. And I said, Daricia, I'm sorry, I don't, but can we pray about this right now? And she was like, okay. So I grab her hands and we pray about this. And afterwards I said, Daricia, I don't know what God's going to do with this, but he's going to do something. Can I have your contact information? She's like, okay. So she gives me her name and her phone number. And then I go and I find her caseworker. And I'm like, is this a thing? And she said, Susan, they're homeless. Yes, it's a thing. They have nothing. They're homeless. We can sometimes, somebody has a donation at the exact same time somebody's transitioning and we can connect the two, but it's just a couch or a chair or something. It's not everything they need.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay. And so I went over to another caseworker. Hey, is this a thing? Yes, it's a thing. So we finished out the week. And now it's the first week of November. And God will not let me let this go. He's waking me up in the night. You know how this feels, Kendra. You just can't let it go.
I do know.
Yes. And so I sent an email to our church secretary and said, send this out. And I made a quick Facebook post. By Thanksgiving, 2 weeks later, I was at Daricia's house 3 times. We got everything she needed for her kids, for her kitchen. Wow. We got her everything, including a Christmas tree, gifts, and Thanksgiving dinner.
Wow.
And I thought, gosh, if God did that with a single prayer, what more does he want from us? And so now it's December and he still won't let me let this go. And I'm like, hey, I took care of Daricia. What more do you want from me? And he keeps waking me up. And I'm talking to everybody who will listen to me about this. So I was focusing on friends who had pickup trucks and extra garages. And I got a handful of people. And they said, yes, sure, Susan, I'll help you. They had no idea. So in January of 2019, I sit down with Phoebe and I say, I want to do this, but I want to do a pilot program from January until May. I want to find out 2 things. What's the need and can I fill it? Because I don't want to make a promise I cannot keep.
That's fair.
By the end of May, we had helped 27 households just being spoon-fed.
Wow.
So I went back and I said, what does this look like if I turn this on full bore? She said, Susan, at any given time, there are 500 people homeless in Lynn County at any given time.
Do you have any idea that that was the case?
No. And she also said that there are over 30 agencies who do what she does. And I said, will you put together a round table for me? And she did in June of 2019. And before I could say anything, they were all like, when can we start? When can I start? And I was like, whoa, slow down. What does this look like? Oh, Susan, I wish I could tell you. And out of nowhere, what comes out of my mouth is, yes, I'll do it. Okay. Now I have to go back to my church and my friends and say, I just did this and it's now bigger than what we can do. And my church was like, Susan, we can't do this. We're just a small group of people. And I said, oh, that's okay. I'll go get my nonprofit status. I had no idea what that meant.
Oh, that's a process too, isn't it?
It is. So I called Phoebe and I said, Phoebe, I just said this. What did I say? And she laughed at me and said, Susan, you need a lawyer. And I was like, great. She said, that's okay. I got a lawyer on my board. I'll connect you. I'll hook
You
you
need a
up.
lawyer, you need a, yeah, you're gonna need a board, you're gonna need,
Yep.
you're gonna need all kinds of things.
So I spent 2 months email and on the phone with the lawyer at Shuttleworth, Ingersoll. 81 pages later, we submit to the IRS. And he said, Susan, don't get your hopes up. This is the IRS. It'll take 90 days for them to even acknowledge they received it, and another 90 days to determine whether or not you're worthy of the status. And I'm like, okay, well, it's the end of August and we are now in 6 garages in 3 locations. And we needed a warehouse space. And so we started looking for warehouse space. So we were looking for space. We always are looking for space. We're looking for available warehouse space at well below the market rate until somebody pays full price. So we found some space over on 33rd Avenue Southwest. It was 4,800 square feet. We never thought we'd fill it. We moved in the first weekend of September of 2019.
Right before all hell.
And that same week we were given our status.
Oh, wow.
So then at the end of 2019, we had helped 227 households, and we had to say, what are we going to do in 2020, not knowing there was going to be a pandemic and a Daricia.
Mm-hmm.
And so we forecasted 400 households. We did 422.
Wow. And do you have to turn people down?
Nope.
Wow.
Never.
That is impressive. How do you not have to turn people down?
Well, the community is an amazing community. Anything I want, I post on Facebook and it shows up.
Well, I can attest, I understand that. It is very weird.
Yep. And in 2020, believe this or not, my entire goal of 2020 was to build a volunteer core group so I wouldn't have to do the day-to-day. And you know what? During a pandemic, we increased our volunteers by 94%. And we have a core group of people who come and make sure that we've got everything that we need and everything goes out the door to the people who need them. And I can focus on doing things like this.
Wow. Because it is hard there. I mean, that's where all the hats really get complicated, in any business, but in nonprofit as well. The hats get complicated when you physically can't do it all. You can't talk about what you do and do it at the same time. It really becomes impossible.
Well, exactly. And with a nonprofit, the end user of our good and service does not pay for it.
Well,
we have to.
So I was at I think you were actually on that call, maybe I don't know if you were or not, when Scott Swenson from the SBDC did the business model canvas recently. I don't know if you were on that one or not, for SCORE, but he was saying, somebody asked, like, would this be the same for a nonprofit? And he said, no, actually. And it was so eye-opening, something I hadn't even put together in marketing, because I've never done marketing for a nonprofit, was he said, because the people you serve are different than the people you market to. So, you're marketing to donors, and to people, philanthropists, people that want to give back to the community, maybe companies, that marketing piece looks so much different but the people you serve are probably not in the same category.
Right.
They're not in the same socioeconomic group. They're not, they don't network in the same way. Yeah. And that was very eye-opening to me. I was like, well, yeah, that's true. How about that?
Yes.
Has that been
eye-opening to me?
I wondered, like, how has that been to navigate?
Well, I'm learning a lot. I'm learning a lot. And trying, I had to learn that where should my money come from? And so 50% of my money needs to come from foundations and grants. So now I got to look for them, right? And then another 40% of my money should come from the community. So I do Facebook fundraisers. I try to get people to give me money all the time. And then there's that little small percent that's events. But you know what? Events are expensive and they take a lot of time. Yes, you know this.
Yeah, and every time I go to a nonprofit event, I always think like, man, like at what point do you get to make money? Because that's very hard to turn that profit. So yeah.
So we're looking for individuals, organizations, churches to adopt us. So I was thinking, I was like, I sponsor a child in Guatemala. I sponsor a child in Nairobi, Kenya. I sponsor a missionary in Honduras. I sponsor a missionary family in Africa. And the money just comes out of my bank account every month. And I'm like, I need to find people to sponsor us that same way, because we're going to do 600 households this year. Wow. 600.
How many have you done already? Do you know?
Yes, 125.
And it's March. Yeah, you're on track. And I think even just making sure that people know that you have or that you exist and that you're looking for help is really important, because so many people have things that are in perfectly good condition to get rid of. And just like, I used to do hair, and so everybody would say, oh, I'm going to donate to Locks of Love. And I didn't love the Locks of Love organization all that much. They're not a bad organization, but there's ones that I wanted to contribute to more. And so I would tell people, well, there's this and that. There were some other ones that Wigs for Kids is the one that I really like. But they would say, people say, oh, I never even heard of that before. So that really becomes the first obstacle, is getting your name out there. But before I ask you anything else, I have to know how. So your logo looks like a fire station. Mm-hmm. And where did Central Furniture Rescue, where the name come from? I come from a firefighter family, so I've been very interested to know.
So, okay. So Central, we're a central location for everybody, but I also attend Central Church of Christ. Furniture, because that's what we want to provide. And we're rescuing it from the landfill, and we're rescuing a family at the same time. So I had a friend who was just trying to figure out, gee, it's kind of like you're a superhero, right? And so a little drawing I took to a friend of mine, Tony Cassidy at Atomic Imprint, and he created it for us.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
I love it. I think it's great. I think a lot of people can connect with it. And one thing you said just now that I think is really important to say out loud is when you're saying you're saving things from the landfill. I'd never been to the landfill until the Daricia show happened. And then I'm now quite familiar with how the landfill works. And Lynn County has an amazing recycling program and an amazing landfill. They have done an amazing job. So I, would not say that that it's something that's necessarily a bad thing, and they do their best to recycle. However, with that said, it's also really easy and quite cheap to just dump things off. So the landfill really becomes an easy place to dump things off. And, we all have our tried and trues of like, oh, I'll just take this to Goodwill. And like, I kind of associate Goodwill with the same as like the Locks of Love. It's not a bad organization, but they get inundated with stuff because they become the drop zone, and they end up having to move things out of their situations too. And we never get to hear those parts of the story.
So we assess a weight and an area to everything that comes in and out of this building. Wow. So in our first year, we diverted 88 tons from the landfill.
Wow.
Last year, we diverted 138 tons from the landfill. Now, tons, it could be 138 elephants, or if you think of the area, because a frying pan is smaller than a mattress, right?
Right.
So the area is the equivalent of 247 53-foot trailers. So imagine that, a train leaving the landfill.
Wow.
So we are the social responsible way of taking care of basic furniture and household items like towels, like bedding, laundry baskets, dishes, pots and pans, all of those things.
How do you go through like if things are worth keeping or not? Because I know that's it's got to be a problem.
Well, we have our quality standards. And again, we have an amazing community, because when people drop things off like that, they're like, okay, these are clean and this is a twin, but sometimes they aren't. Right. And things that don't fit our quality standards. So let's say it's the fitted sheet and the elastic is no longer elastic, the ones that drive you crazy. What we do is we tear those into strips, and that becomes how we package the sets of sheets and towels. So wow. We just do that. We do have to take some trips to the landfill, I have to admit. We can't divert everything. So we go about every other month to the landfill. And it's usually furniture that's broken or can't be cleaned, mattresses that don't fit our quality standard. And once our donors realize who it's going to, and we want to treat everybody with dignity and respect. And I say, if you're questioning whether or not to give it to us, would you be comfortable giving it to a friend or a relative?
Oh, sure.
And if the answer is yes, then yeah, great.
Do you have a lot of issues with getting a bunch of stuff that you just don't need?
We have some great volunteers who love to process, and it's kind of like Christmas to them all the time. And when they go through things, there are certain things that we don't need. And so we start piles. Some things will go to YPN. Some things will go to Olivet. Some things, we have a list of other nonprofits that could use some of the things that we don't use. And so that happens every week. And some things go into the trash, but not a lot.
Awesome. I think, I love what you do. And I imagine it's really hard to keep up with all the people that need your help. And that part of it, how do you deal with trying to keep up and trying to, you said you don't turn people away. So how do you deal with that mentally?
Well, first of all, there's something called secondhand trauma. And you probably experienced it with your your project. You start to feel the pain of the people that you're helping.
Mhm.
And our entire volunteer staff has huge hearts, and they will do everything possible to make sure that everybody is taken care of.
Wow. So that means you too, you have to make sure you're taken care of too.
Try.
Now, I'm assuming you just didn't spend the 35 years prior to starting this in a career of just worshiping at church. What did you do before all of this came about?
Well, I spent my adult life, I've had like 5 different careers. And most of them were in some sort of administration or project management. So I'm kind of a numbers nerd. You should see my spreadsheets.
As long as they tell a story, right?
Exactly. But you got to remember that money that I have to get. I have to have evidence, right? I have to know the exact donated value of each thing, the weight. I need to know what is the replacement value. I need to know number of items per household. I need to know number of households. How big is the household? How many have kids? How old are the kids? I got to know all of that because there's somebody who cares enough about one piece of that wants to give me money.
You know what? That is definitely true. That is, I 100%. If you can give people a name and a face, ages of kids, a mom, a dad, this type of work, that type of interest, as soon as people make a connection, then it makes them, want to help.
Absolutely.
So, are you working anymore in any sort of 9 to 5, or is this now your 9 to 5?
This is so I retired 2 years prior to this.
Oh, what life?
Retired. I had been freshly married, and I married someone who was retired, and I was working 60 hours a week and doing project management for multi-million-dollar projects, flying all over the place. And that first year was really hard. And I remember waking up and saying, either you need to leave or I need to quit my job. And he said, I don't know why you're working. And I had to ask myself, why am I working? And that was really hard.
I bet. Because, you wrap your identity up in your job.
Exactly. And I was a single mom for so long, right? I had something to prove.
Yeah.
And so I resigned. And then I spent 2 years trying to figure out what the world am I going to do? You can only redo your house so many times. You can only play in the garden so many times. I do have 8 grandchildren, and I do get to go and see them. But then this found me. And
well, it's funny, I called it a 9 to 5, but it's funny. You'll work dusk till dawn and all the hours in between when you're really passionate about something. And that is just that, like, you don't have to ask somebody that's passionate to show up. You just want to.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's insane. How many volunteers did you say you have now? Or that
we have a core group of about 37, 38, a core group that comes every week that does things from, we have someone who, when you call with a donation, she's our donations coordinator, and she's going to make sure that you either deliver it or we pick it up. We have a couple of people who are what I call client coordinators. They're the ones who are talking with the families to see what they need. We have warehouse staff, we have processors, we have delivery people. We have a group of 18 to 22-year-olds, college students. We have missionary kids. We have youth groups and families and church groups who want to just help do a delivery, because that is life changing. when you deliver to a family, a mama with kids, and you walk in and they have spread a blanket out on the floor so they can have dinner, and there are no beds, and they're all sitting on the floor, and you can bring them beds, and you can bring them a table and a couch and a rocking chair for mama.
Wow.
It's life-changing.
What a cool thing to get that at a younger age. And God bless their young backs, right?
Yeah. Because we all have perceptions of reality, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, we do. I know exactly what you mean. Yes, we do.
And until your world gets a little bit bigger, your reality never changes. Mm-hmm. And this gives, we not only help the people who need furniture, but we have volunteers that are changing their lives because of this.
Yeah, it's very cool to see that ripple effect, isn't it? Mm. Yeah, it's really, really neat. And I love watching what you do on Facebook. I love that you share videos and, of your volunteers working. And it just, it kind of reminds people, especially when you, like, I thought of this last weekend. I think you shared a video of people getting ready to deliver a family's furniture, and they're just kind of like wrapping up the details, getting trucks loaded and all of this stuff. And it was such a great reminder that, like, hey, like, I might have a couple hours on a Saturday to do something like that. So how do people get in touch with you if they want to donate, or if they want to donate time? How do they get in touch with you?
Well, so we have a website, a Facebook page. Message me. I'll message you right back. Call us, send me an email.
You really don't care how they do it? Send a courier?
I don't care. Show up. Yeah. Just show up. And
where are you located? Where's your warehouse located?
Well, we are in warehouse number 4 since September. So right now we are on 18th Avenue Southwest. It's the Old Star Restaurant Equipment Building.
Oh, yes. Okay.
So we're here temporarily until he finds someone to lease it at full price, and then we'll go finding a new home. Our ultimate goal is permanency. I like to tell people I am no better off than the people I help. I am always 60 days from having to move.
Well, yeah, and especially if you're, taking up space between leases for people so you can negotiate a better price. But of course, as that business owner, how, you can't, yeah. So you have to end up being the building owner yourself in order to make that work, right?
Yeah. And it'll happen. It'll happen eventually. Right now, we've got to get money for our current operational costs.
Well, and such is the life of a nonprofit. It's really feast or famine, and it is day to day. It is paycheck to paycheck, so to speak. There is no. I looked at when I was first developing U conferences, and profiting off of U conferences was never a goal to make a massive profit. So I looked into nonprofit, like maybe that's why I want to run this ship. And very quickly I about faced that idea. And it had a lot to do with control and politics and kind of a few things in between. And also, definitely being in a different place altogether. It would not have been a good fit. But it takes it is not just like running a business, and it really takes a different mindset, because like I said, you market to what we can dumb the terms down really far if we wanted to. You market to the rich, and then you serve the poor. And that's most nonprofits, not most, but a lot of nonprofits, I guess, how it works. And man, that becomes a real interesting game, which is why the events are expensive,
Right.
because you're having an event for people that want to have a gala.
Yep.
$20,000 later, easily.
You may make 10.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's hard.
Yes.
It's hard, and it's hard to watch that money go out the door to pamper the bottoms of sponsors.
Yeah.
It's hard. It's hard work, and you know, and you can't really. There's not a whole lot that you can say, because you never want to offend people. You don't want people to feel like you're ungrateful, and but all of that, like, that really comes on the shoulders of a nonprofit organization.
Well, and we're a newbie too. We're a new nonprofit. And, you know, one of the great things right now is we're 100% volunteer run. I volunteer my 60, 80 hours a week.
Wow.
We have volunteers who spend time here for free. But there'll be a time that won't happen, but we're still a newbie. So still trying to get our feet wet and trying to get the awareness out there and get people to sponsor us. And, you know, as a new nonprofit, you can only go after so many grants. So it's kind of like you just graduated from college and you're going to the bank and you want to buy a house and they laugh at you. Yeah. Like, you got to get yourself put together first. And
well, it sounds like you've got some support from the other nonprofits in town, though. So I think that's amazing. I'm always impressed on how, I mean, I don't know if the nonprofit world is competitive. I suppose it is for donations by nature, but I'm always impressed to see how, you know, Waypoint and United Way and I mean, all lots of different ones. I don't want to leave anybody out. Will Estate, all of these different nonprofits kind of work together, and they seem to know when to shift you from one organization to the other. But a lot of people get lost in the shuffle of where they qualify for nonprofit help too. So that can be really tricky. I learned that during the Daricia show.
Yeah. Yep. And we've learned so much that we kind of know, right? The people who are working with the clients, because we can get clients who send us a Facebook post or call or send us an email from the website, and we have to then help them figure out where they need to go in order for them to get a referral to us.
Okay. Yeah.
And so
they've got to work themselves into the system. So because you're not there to counsel them through.
Yeah, we're not social workers. Yeah. And
it's got to be hard to not just wrap them all up, though, isn't it?
Oh gosh, I know.
Yeah, unfortunately, you know, after my project, and I've kept in touch with Lisa and plan to go out there this spring to finish up some yard work and things like that. But I'm sure it's a muddy mess. I bet her boys are just tearing it up. Oh God. But I, you know, wasn't able to do a lot anymore over the winter because I had to catch up with work. And that was, I think, really hard for her, because we'd become pretty close through that time. And, you know, she'd message me and, you know, here I'm working like 14 and 16-hour days to catch up. And I was like, I promise you, honey, it's not personal, but it really is very hard to not, you know, entangle yourselves in each other's lives. And that's got to be a hard piece of the puzzle.
There's a line that we're always crossing back and forth, but you got to have that line, or
it's weird.
Or gosh, there'd be 600 families that I'd have to call every day.
Yeah, you know, they'd all be living in my basement.
Yeah.
That part is so tough. So when your husband suggested, you know, why are you working, and then you went from working to probably working more, but not getting paid, how has that been working out? Is it?
Well, he loves me deeply, and he also is one of our volunteers. He's a driver.
That's awesome.
And he bought a pickup truck, and you know, and so he comes a couple of days a week and helps do deliveries. He actually drives the truck and lets the young
Those
the young people lift and carry and do all of that. And but I made him a promise that this is a 5-year thing for me. And I'm always, got to plan that succession.
Yeah.
I don't, this will be a legacy, but I want to go from what I am to just the founder. And yeah, well, the one who goes out there and tells the story, right? Yeah. And we'll get there. It's kind of a 5-year plan. I didn't think I was going to get this far in 2 years. So
yeah, I always say those times you have to put your head down, they're always a season, and there's payoff to it. There's sacrifice and there's payoff, and you kind of ebb and flow between the two. And it's hard. It's hard to not get burned out when you're really passionate about something. It's hard to recognize when the burnout's coming. But I think every volunteer thing that I get involved with, especially the people that have been there a long time, a lot of retired people get into volunteerism, and they get into their 80s, and you just think, are we going to be able to work this out when you're not here? And I don't necessarily mean when they are dead, but I mean when it's too much, or when they need to step back. And I think spreading that message for the younger generations, and even my age, I'm in my 40s, and you talk about people even younger, like encouraging people and empowering people to step up and to volunteer, to help out the community, to put some time in. I think the biggest problem people have is that they think they don't, like, they're a couple of hours here and there is never enough. So if they're not doing it weekly or monthly or often, but man, did I learn I would say 2 hands in 2 hours will make an entire difference in how a day will go, and to not underestimate how powerful your 2 hands and your 2 hours are. So, the money donations are great, and of course we need those too, but that time and what you can do in a couple of hours time is really impactful.
Absolutely.
I think that if I, thinking about all the volunteering I did, how much more I could do with a couple of extra hands would be cool.
Absolutely. I love that 2 hours and 2 hands. I may steal that from you.
Please do steal it away, because I intend to not run any volunteer crews of any physical way. I intend to be the 2 hands in the 2 hours. But yeah, and while you're working full time, my husband's the mayor for our town, and it's a pretty much a volunteer situation. If you knew how much money he made doing it, you would ask why the hell he does it. We ask ourselves that too sometimes. But he said, this is a retired man's job, because it does. So he's working full time and doing that. I call it part time, but the part time part of it is whatever. It's pretty much volunteering for the community, and it really is. It's hard to do when you work. So if you got 2 hours on a Saturday, that's worth its weight in gold, isn't it?
Absolutely.
You just cheer inside and out when people show up.
I do. I get excited, and and I do a video, I take pictures, because I want the world to see it.
Yeah.
And
now, are your grandchildren, you said you have 8 grandkids, are they local?
No. I have a set here in Iowa, 3 little boys here in Iowa. They're about an hour and a half away. We have 2 in Topeka, Kansas. We have 1 in Virginia. And all right, are you ready for this? 2 in Thailand.
Oh, they're spread out a little bit.
Yeah. And the oldest is going to be 11, so it's 11 on down. And yeah, they're pretty amazing.
But they're not over here schlepping furniture and moving it for you just yet. You're gonna have to have grandma's summer camp when they're all in their teens. I feel like grandma's summer camp sounds like a great idea to get them.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Well, they do some things. I let them do some things when they show up, because they want to come out to the warehouse and they run around and hide and do all of that. But I'll have something for them to do, like tear some sheets up and turn them into strips so we can tie things. But,
Well, and if people do donate, they want to donate, they message you through your website, which we'll have listed in the through your website, through your Facebook page, however they want to communicate, you're on the other side of the screen.
absolutely.
That sounds awesome. Well, thank you for
Absolutely.
being here. I'm excited to hear you share your story on the stage. Wednesday night is you're going to kick us off as our second speaker, which we appreciate so much. I was just telling the last podcast with Amy Perry, so she's the first speaker Wednesday night, and I'm like, every time I put people in those first spots, so the first two spots on Wednesday and then the first spot on Thursday, I always like wait for the hate email to come, like, what the heck, man, you're making me and there's really no rhyme or reason to how it goes. I just try to stagger it and kind of make every other person a little bit like the difference in the people, so I don't want too many similar stories shared at the same time. So, it's just how it works itself out. And I appreciate that you didn't send me a hate email.
Oh, no. In fact, I always like being first, in the first ones, just get it over with. Then I can enjoy the rest of the conference.
Yeah, I'm kind of that way too. In fact, the fact that my talk is always in the middle of the day is, well, I mean, I do some emceeing at the beginning, but my talk is in the middle of the day, and that's almost too late. I'm like, I'd rather have this done and over with. But I'm excited to see you. I'm excited to hear your story. Thank you for being on today too. I appreciate it. I've loved learning a little bit more about what you do. Lindsay Handy goes on and on about the work that you're doing, and she just loves everything that you provide. She just loves you to death too. So,
well, and then it's mutual. She's my girl.
Isn't she fun?
Oh.
Get out of her way though. I mean, she'll run you over. I think she should come with a warning sign.
And she knows it.
Yeah. This is no surprise. I know she's not watching live. She'll watch this later. And yes, I do believe that she should come with a warning sign. But she's such an advocate for philanthropy. You guys know the word.
Yep.
So I thought I could say it, not today. I will certainly be going through my talk and making sure I don't try to use that word on Thursday. But she's such an advocate for giving back to the community. I don't know how she sits on all the boards she does, but I'm glad that I don't know, I'll call it because she's young and ambitious. That's what I'll say.
Well, she's got the heart for it. She's got passion for people.
Yeah, she does 100%. Thank you again so much for being here. I can't wait to see you.
All righty. Thank you.